Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 253 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. My guest this week is lead singer Cullen Moore from the band Sleep Theory, who are getting ready to release their new album Afterglow coming up on May 16th. They're also headed out on the road this summer on the Afterglow tour with Nevertel, Oxymorrons, and Strayview, with 2 stops in New England at the Sinclair in Cambridge, Massachusetts on June 19th, and at the State Theater in Portland, Maine on June 22nd. Tickets for both shows are on sale now, and you'll find the links in the show notes of this episode. I first met Cullen Moore in December, opening up for Daughtry, and I asked him if he would come on the show, and he said yes. I bumped into him again a couple months ago in Vegas, and once again, he promised he would come on the show. Cullen Moore is a man of his word. So allow me to introduce you to Cullen Moore from Sleep Theory. Mr. Cullen Moore, you are a man of your word.
Yeah. Hello, how are you?
It's good to see you. We tried to connect before the holidays when you were touring with Daughtry, and we couldn't make it happen. And then I saw you at that show and then again in Vegas, and you were like, I'm coming on the show.
Yeah.
And we finally made it work. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
Dude, I feel like your band has gone from like 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. How are you kind of handling everything that's going on with Sleep Theory right now? Because it's crazy.
We're just taking it a day at a time, you know. Hey, I'm just staying out the way. We're just, like every day is something new. Every day is a new a milestone, and it's just like I'm extremely grateful. And it's just like, what can you really say? Like, what do you really do? You just got to keep going with it,
When you were in Portland in December with Daughtry, you played the State Theater, and now X number of months later, the Afterglow tour is going back to those same venues, except this time you guys are the headliners.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. That's the same thing that happened with us with Shinedown, Beartooth, Wage War, Nothing More. In Wisconsin, we're supposed to play the Majestic, but we sold it out and we've upgraded now to the Sylvie. So, which is absolutely insane because, when we first went on tour with Shinedown, when they took us out for the 2-week run, that's one of the places that they played. And, and then going back with Beartooth, and it's just like, it's so unbelievable that when we were opening for these bands, now we're coming back less than a year later for some, and then almost 2 years later with Shinedown, and we're playing that same room headlining. Is absolutely mind-boggling. Being grateful is an understatement. So
back in the 90s, if you were a band and you got an opening slot for Seven Dust, it was like everybody knew that was the springboard. And Shinedown seems to have that effect on bands too. And those guys have been longtime friends of the show, that they have a great knack for identifying amazing artists and taking them on tour and going, come on, we're going to make this thing happen.
Right. And again, I always talk about how grateful I am to not only all the bands that we uh, tour with, but Shinedown, they really took us under their wing, and like there's things that we were nervous about while touring. Is just like, and the whole team, not only just the band, but the whole team is just like, look, we're here to work it through with you. We're here to figure it out. Don't stress. If anything, technical difficulties, we got you. And that says a lot, and it did a lot for us. Zach is from Memphis, and I'm from the same area, and our producer and Zach went to school together. And our producer told me back before Sleep Theory had blown up, even had a name. I had done some other songs with our producer just because they were looking for a singer to sing on some of these songs. And he had said that Zach came by the studio and didn't know who I was or whatever, but he let him hear it. And from what I was told, he said that Zach heard it and said, whoever that guy is that's singing, tell him don't stop, keep doing the freaking thing and keep pushing because he's going to be something someday. That was back in 2019.
Wow.
And had no clue who I was. I had no clue. Like I never talked to him, never seen him. And so whenever things happen, it just kind of came back around. And the person that had said that is the first person that reached out and said, hey, let's go do something. Like, let's do a tour. So it's really cool. There's so many crazy things that just happen. It's just, I never have the words.
When I saw you in Vegas, you were talking about your close friendship with the guys from Nevertel who are out on the Afterglow tour with you.
Yes. It's absolutely, I'm excited, for all of it. I've been fans of Nevertel since, again, before Sleep Theory had even been a thing. And so being able to say that they're not only our peers, but also really good friends, it means the world to me, because I would listen to their music and be like, man, I would take what they're doing to the studio and be like, man, what can we do? Like, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Like, this is so cool. And so without them knowing, they were a big piece of Sleep Theory. And being able to just say, hey, we're on the same tour, sharing the same stage, and we have the same manager now, is just like, it's just, everything is always a blessing. I'm super grateful.
One of the things about rock music I feel like right now is that it's kind of all over the place, which I love, that there's so many different diverse sounds and artists, and you're taking the Oxymorron guys out, who I could not love more.
Yes.
They are amazing live. I'm warning you that if you ever get the chance to drink pitchers of pina coladas on a roof deck in Vegas with them, you might need to nap after, because that's what happened to me.
They are absolutely insane.
I love them.
They are great. Absolutely great. And I'm just super excited. It's going to be an all-around show from top to bottom. A lot of people don't know about Strayview. Strayview is going to kick your chest in. Like, seriously, like, we played the Memphis headline show with Strayview, and Nevertel, of course. And some, the Line So Thin the first night, and the second night we had Minute After Midnight. But like, Strayview, like, you just don't know until you know. And they are absolutely nuts. It's going to be great. It's just going to be so much fun.
New England's got two chances to see the show: June 19th at the Sinclair in Cambridge, Mass., and then June 22nd at the State Theater in Portland, Maine. And that's about a month after Afterglow actually comes out on May 16th. So you guys are releasing the record and hitting the ground running.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure, like, at first, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, at first, the album was supposed to come out like 3-4 days after the tour started. I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, no. I was like, it either comes out before or I'm not going. I was like, I'm not going on no, like, what, who does that? Like, you got an album coming out, but then you release the album like 4 days, 5 days before the tour starts. No, I'm not doing that. And so I made sure that at least we had 2 days. 2 days is all I need for people to listen to the songs, get acquainted with them, learn them to the best of their abilities, and then we're going to rock it out. That's all we need. So I'm super excited. Super excited.
Mark from Dirty Honey told me this hilarious story that he heard from the AC/DC guys that they toured for 3 weeks with Brian Johnson before Back in Black came out. Can you imagine being in the crowd watching AC/DC and hearing those songs, but no one's heard them yet because the record's not out yet, and you're just like,
right.
What?
Right.
Yeah. So people do it, but I like your way better to at least give us a chance to learn the songs first.
Right. And the thing is like back when we were on Daughtry, you probably heard some new songs that aren't released. And we do that obviously just to kind of for the highs and lows of the show, but also to just kind of tease what's happening. And so again, gets the people's brain meats working. But yeah, like for the headline, I was just like, there's no way. Like you couldn't convince me to do that. Like, no. Like we're gonna release this thing first.
There's 2 themes that come up on this show all the time. That musical ability, in a lot of cases, is inherited. Something my family definitely did not give me in the genes. And the other thing is how many rock stars grew up in veteran families. And you are the first person that I've had on the show that not only grew up in a veteran family, but then served yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's never happened before. And I always ask, it's being married to a career Marine who's still active duty. I understand the structure of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, I guess, lifestyle similarities, but how do you think growing up in a military family helped you in your musical pursuit, or your military experience yourself helped you in your musical pursuit?
Growing up, my dad, he was in the Army. He served for 24 years and then he retired. He retired to Lieutenant Colonel. So he was doing a thing.
He was doing his thing.
Yeah, he was doing his thing. And he'd always encouraged me to join, but I told him I'd never do it. I said I just never was interested. I grew up around it. I was homeschooled, so I'd always go to drill with my dad on the weekends that whenever he went. And so I just never was interested. At some point in my life when I was growing up, I just didn't feel like I was doing anything. I didn't really have the best job, or I wasn't in college or whatever like that. I was like, you know what, whatever. I'll just join. But I did it without telling my dad. My friend actually told me he had joined. And that's when it's kind of like I was like, man, I got to do something. And so I went and talked to the recruiter and all that stuff. And I didn't tell my dad I was doing it because I didn't want to join based off of what he was I don't want to say telling me to do, because my dad doesn't tell me to do anything with life. What he was advising or he was encouraging me to do, I wanted to join on my own accord. That way, if I didn't like it, I could never go back and say, Dad, you convinced me to do this. Like, why would you get me to do this? Or if if any reason, or I just wanted it to be my own decision for myself, and I didn't want it to be influenced by anybody else. If I had gone and talked to him even for 2 minutes about it, I feel like my decision making would have been shifted to whatever. I just needed to be what I needed to do. I think that growing up in that, household, my dad was never the beat on your door, jump out of bed, make your bed, and he was never like that. That was my mom. Mama don't play.
Hey, the spouse of someone that's career military.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Yeah. Trust me, I know.
And and not only that, but my mom, she's from Baton Rouge. She's Cajun, so she got some spice to her. So mama don't play. But growing up in that environment definitely helped shape a lot of things and getting me prepared, I guess, not only for life, but knowing how to navigate any business, whether it's the music business, whether it's whatever business, is just being always in a state of awareness and understanding your surroundings, of what you say can affect this and what you do can affect that, So I think that it definitely had a lot to do with my music career. I started rambling. I think I'm answering the question.
Yeah, you totally are. Because I never realized until I started the podcast and was able to have long conversations with artists, how many artists were raised by veterans. It really is. So to me, there's got to be some kind of correlation, like with what you're talking about, with whether it's discipline or organization or stick-to-itiveness or whatever it is that environment kind of puts you in a position to be successful, whether it be at music or whatever it is. But it just happens too often for it to be coincidental.
Yeah. It's I was talking to someone else about it. I've always been a very determined person. I've always been very headstrong. I've always been whatever is set in front of me, I can do. When I went to the Army, it only intensified that by times 1,000, whatever it is. It's always been instilled in me by myself that, like, if I tell myself I can't do something, that I can't do it. But your brain is very it works in a lot of ways that people don't think. And so if you tell yourself that you can do something, you can. And that sounds so cliche and so played out, but truthfully, that's exactly what happens. If you tell yourself you cannot do this, or like you can't do that, you're going to convince yourself you can't. So being determined and confident in yourself does a lot. But then the Army just says, oh man, we're gonna build that up in you even more.
Are you one of those weirdos like me that when someone tells you no, it's like the most motivating factor ever because you just want to shove it?
I'm very competitive. So if I see someone doing something better than me and something that I want to be great at, then you're all right, bet, like, here we go. And just all around, like, I love competition. I love friendly competition, but and if it needs to be dirty competition, I'll be dirty, whatever it is. If we slinging mud, let's sling mud. I'm gonna make the biggest mud ball. Let's go. But I just love being able to prove people wrong, not for them but for me, because sometimes when people say stuff, you start to kind of like wonder. Before the music took off, I've been doing music since I was 12, and so people would always be like, oh, you're still doing the music thing, or oh, like, you're gonna go to college, or like, and some people be like, oh yeah, he's still doing that thing. And like, it's cool to know that the time wasn't wasted for me, and it's not, I was never I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna show them. Like, it was never that. It's just, I stayed focused for myself. But now that I've accomplished it for myself, it's never a look at me thing, but it's kind of like it's more of a learning lesson for them to don't tell somebody what you think that they can do. Like, then you'll be left looking foolish, because people take it and people either hold on to it, or they'll start to resent you for it. Like, so you don't want to discourage someone, and you don't want the person that you may have discouraged to resent you. But if you have someone that's clear-minded, they just do it, and they're just like, hey, well, I did it. Like me, I did it for myself. And then when those people come back and be like, oh man, I believe that you always would do it, I'm like, well, let's not forget, hey, buddy, I remember, because it's crazy, I know, being the person on the other side of it, seeing stories of when people talk about, like, oh, they remember the person that said, I'll be like, ain't no way they would remember that person that said that this many years ago, like, whatever. But now that I am that person, I remember everybody that said whatever to me. I remember whenever I was trying to come up and do whatever, I was like, a friend of mine or whoever it was, and it's just a joke or whatever, but they're like, man, they're like, I think they got pregnant or whatever, and they're like, man, like, it would suck to have been gotten pregnant by you or whatever, or whoever it is. We never had that kind of connection, whatever, but it's a joke. But it was almost like because you're not doing anything, you're just doing music. And that's one thing that always stuck with me because, like, man, like that's what you think of me as a person, that I wouldn't be able to provide anything if this hypothetical situation was to ever happen. And you just hold on to it. And it's just one of those things
all
in the
the
back of
time,
your
Carrie,
brain.
let it go. And I'm like, oh no, it's in my teeth. It ain't going anywhere.
And that's the thing, it's just like, it's not something that I hold on to that I'm just angry about. And me and that person, we're still great friends. Like, I talked to them last week. We're still great friends, but it's just one of those things that maybe they forgot, but it's something that I didn't forget, but it's nothing that they were trying to demean me of. It was a joke, we're just joking. We're just clowning or whatever, but all jokes contain some truth. And just that right there is just one of those things that just motivated me. And it's just like, all right, well, I'll show you. Like, even if we never been that way, but all right, bet. Like, fine. One of my bosses, he was just like, you'll always work these kind of jobs. You'll always be that person that has this kind of, because I was always just like the goofball at work and this and that, and understandably in some places, but they'd always be, and so they just see what they see, but they don't see at the surface of of somebody's work ethic. I'm spiraling. I'm rambling.
I am so into it. Are you sure you and I aren't related? Because we're so alike.
Yeah, but it's just like, you take them, and it's never anything that you can hold on to and then bring back up and say, oh, look, I remember you said this at this date at this time, and it's never a gotcha. But it's
the
just
bulletin board in the Patriots locker room, man. You don't want to end up there because you're just going to piss them off.
Yeah, but honestly, if anything, it's instead of it being a gotcha, I'd say it's a thank you, because those people passively built me into who I am and my work ethic. So thanks.
What about the other part about the musical ability part? Do you think there's a genetic component to it, or do you think growing up in a musical family environment helped you musically?
So my dad, he sings. My mom can hold a note. She's not like a singer, but she can hold a note, and she'd be like, "Oh, you're off." She's not tone deaf. She did marching band, all that stuff. She grew up around music and such. But my dad's brother, he sings. My dad's sister, she sings. My dad's other brother sings, and my dad's other brother sings. My grandma sang. My grandma's sister sang, and everybody sing.
You want to share
everybody
some of these singing genes with me, because this voice does one thing, and it ain't singing.
Like my like one of my great aunts, or one of my however the cousins are, like my grandma's cousin or whatever, whoever it is, she actually sang in one of these movies. I don't know if it was 12 Years a Slave. It was maybe like one of the newer ones, one of those, and she sang in that film, like a Hollywood film, and it's relatively new in the last 5 years or so. Like, we've been in a family. I've grown up around it. My grandma would call me, and every birthday for all my cousins and my sister and such, they would call, and right when we picked up, she had all our birthdays remembered. She wouldn't say hi, she wouldn't say nothing. She'd start off with, "I just called to say I love you," and she just every year, and so it's always just been something that's been embedded in me, from grandma calling me every birthday, to whenever I was younger. The main reason I knew I wanted to be a musician is my dad, when he was doing music, when he was my age or younger than he was much younger than me. He had this music video that he made with my mom, and it was one of the first songs that he wrote. And it was a little music video, those shoulder cameras. It's just him and my mom in a park. And I saw this as a kid, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And from that moment, my mind never shifted from the fact I wanted to do music. And it didn't hit me until later on in life that was the placement of the beginning of it all. you know? And so like it's just been something that I was introduced to. One of the first memories, you know, when you hit consciousness, the first memory was me and my dad. We're in my family's 2-bedroom apartment out here, and I was jumping on the couch with him singing Bobby Brown, you know, My Prerogative. That's one of the first memories that I can say was when I came into consciousness. And, you know, you flow in and out of consciousness as a kid, but that's like one of the key ones. And which is funny because the song kind of explains my attitude about things. I'm just going to do what I want. Kind of built me in like without knowing.
He's a proud Boston boy. That's what happens.
Yeah, you know, so there's just so much that, you know, everybody's like, oh, when did you start singing? I'm like, dude, I don't even know. Like, it's just something I've always been able to do. I don't know. They're like, can you teach me? I don't know.
Do you remember the first song you wrote?
The first song I wrote was probably, so I've written lyrics. But a song that became a song was probably with my buddy. It was either a song called Forever. Yep. And I have recordings of it, and you'll never hear it. I mean, it's not terrible. It's actually not bad. It's something that I could go back and kind of poke at and probably reimagine in a way to being something that is usable. But yeah, it's probably that one. Yeah.
Who was the artist that was the gateway to rock music for you, or metal for you?
That's a loaded question. Because it all started from one place. One of the first that I heard was My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade. But that's a little bit more in like the alternative rock scene, pop, or whatever. I don't know how to explain My Chemical Romance, but
that album has gone through like 3 different music classifications since it was released.
Yeah, like I don't know what to say that is, but from there, I started to deep dive into different bands and whatnot, and I ended up on Disturbed. Disturbed was that band that was just like, yeah, like it wasn't like, now that wasn't, you know, some people ask me what's the first CD that you own. The first CD that I owned was Linkin Park, you know, Hybrid Theory. But then on top of that, Daughtry, like the one right after he got out of American Idol, like that one was, those are the 2 CDs. I'm like, yo, this is like, these are the 2 CDs. But the introductory to it all started with My Chemical Romance, but then I started deep diving, going different places. I can't remember how I got to Disturbed. I was watching a Dragon Ball Z video, I think, and then Decadence was on, and I had to figure out what that freaking song was. And I like kept on like Googling, and I finally found the song, and I was like, this is freaking cool. But then from Disturbed, it went to maybe 3 Days Grace, and then I started in that area, but then it was Crossfade in some areas, and then you go to Headstrong by Trapped. Like, this is the stuff that I was just kind of like into. And then you got Bullet for My Valentine, but then you go a little bit more. Did I already say 3 Days Grace?
Mm-hmm.
Started going around, and it was then I was on post-hardcore, which Escape the Fate introduced me a little bit more to that metal. I don't want to say metalcore, but it was like post-hardcore scene or whatever. So then I Skylit Drive and Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, Seosin, Dance Gavin Dance, and then started going. And I just started just going, man. And here we are.
It's so crazy because that Disturbed tour was just coming through New England with 3 Days Grace and Seven Dust. And I had this conversation with all of those bands about how many detractors there were about the new metal scene when it started in the mid to late 90s. And people were like, this music. I mean, Dave Mustaine just said in an interview a couple of weeks ago that he's glad that era of music's over. And I'm like, has Dave Mustaine not looked at the arenas and stadiums around? Because all these bands haven't gone anywhere. And so to not only see that all of those bands that you're talking about are back bigger than ever, selling out arenas, stadiums, but that the influence was so profound that now there's this generation of bands coming up under them like you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that it, trends, I don't want to say trends, but history repeats itself. I think that there is a time that, that nu metal was the thing and it was like super freaking cool. And then it started shifting to where it was like, oh, and then we started getting to like this 2000 sound, which is still freaking cool. But then from that, everything started becoming more polished, where it was like more like sounds of like this, and then like ding, like I don't know how to, it just pretty sounds. And then you have the people that grew up listening to nu metal that are now of age that are just like, I want to do what I grew up on. So now they're taking what they have been listening to throughout the years, and now they want to go back to the nostalgia of what they grew up listening to, and now you're mixing it all in. So now we're back on what used to be, but in a new, fresh fashion. And I think that's exactly what's happening. I think that the 2000 sounds is coming back, and I think that it's super freaking cool because the 2000 sound was sick. I mean, like I loved, Avril Lavigne. I loved, Fall Out Boy was a big one for me as well. But then you have like your Blink 182 or whatever. I never listened to Blink 182, but you have all these, you get what I'm saying? Like all these bands, like the Paramours of, 2005 and all that stuff.
And P.S., those bands are still all doing it 20 years later. So my point is, if it sucked 20 years ago, it wouldn't still be around now.
Yeah.
And it most definitely is.
Exactly. And I think everything that's happening is great. I love it.
Well, I'm really excited about Afterglow coming out May 16th. I cannot wait to see this tour with all of the bands that you're out on the road with. Two shows in New England, in Cambridge at the Sinclair and the State Theater in Portland. Thank you for being a man of your word and coming on the show like you promised. I appreciate it. Of course, anytime. It's good talking to you. There he is, Cullen Moore from Sleep Theory. The new album Afterglow comes out on May 16th. The Afterglow tour features Nevertel, Oxymorrons, and Strayview. Tickets are on sale now to see him at the Sinclair in Cambridge, Mass. on June 19th and at the State Theater in Portland, Maine on June 22nd. You'll find the links to both shows in the show notes of this episode. You'll also find the link to this episode's corresponding playlist. I make a playlist for every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that features all of my guest music and all the artists and songs that we referenced in the interview. You'll also find Cullen Moore's links, the Sleep Theory links, and of course, the Mistress Carrie links. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and comment on the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday. Plus, every weekday, you get the Sit Rep. The Situation Report breaks down all of your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates in about 5 minutes. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. Join me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern for my weekly streaming video show, Cocktails in the War Room, and you can always find me on the radio. Get the details on all of that and more at MistressCarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie Podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.